Titan Station floated in the cold silence above Saturn's golden clouds. From a distance, the station looked small, like a metal seed drifting among the storms. Inside, Commander Eli Vance sat alone in the control room, surrounded by soft blue lights and the steady hum of machines. He had spent 6 years here, maintaining the weather satellites that studied Saturn's atmosphere. It was a quiet life. Too quiet, some would say. But Eli had learned to enjoy the silence. There were no crowds, no politics, no noise. Just him, the machines, and the endless view of Saturn turning below. Every 12 hours he sent reports back to Earth Command. They rarely replied except for the usual acknowledgments. Out here it often felt like he was the last human alive. It was late, long past scheduled hours. The sky outside the window had turned deep amber, and the planet's shadow was slowly climbing over the station. Eli stretched, finished a system diagnostic, and sipped what passed for coffee. The air smelled faintly of metal and recycled filters. He rubbed his tired eyes, ready to call it a night. Then something strange happened. The door to his quarters slid open, by itself. Eli froze. The station's AI, Hermes, never opened doors without authorization. He turned his head slowly toward the sound. The light from the corridor spilled into the dim room, cutting a bright line across the floor. And then he saw her. A woman stood in the doorway. She was tall, her posture straight and confident. Her eyes shone like polished silver, reflecting the soft light around them. Her suit looked nothing like the station's uniforms, sleek, layered with faintly glowing patterns that seemed to move like liquid metal. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she smiled, bold and teasing, and said in a calm voice, "Well, say something." Eli blinked, unsure if this was a dream or a malfunction of his senses. "Who are you?" he finally managed to say. "Lyra," she replied easily, stepping into the room as if she belonged there. "And before you call security or your AI, I'll save you the trouble. They won't answer." Eli frowned and tapped the console on his wrist. "Hermes status report." Silence. The AI's usual response didn't come. He looked back at her. "What did you do?" "Nothing harmful," she said, walking around his quarters and studying everything with curious eyes. The data screens, the holographic map of Saturn, even the half-empty coffee mug. "Your station system is basic. I only quieted it for a while. I needed to talk to you without interruptions." "Talk to me," Eli repeated. "You broke into a classified facility for conversation." "Not broke," she said with a grin. "Walked in." Eli crossed his arms. "This station's orbit is secure. No ship could dock without alerting command." She turned her gaze toward him, her silver eyes catching the light. "You humans still think you see everything, but your systems only monitor what you understand. I came through what you don't." Her words sent a chill down Eli's spine. He had read enough science logs to know that kind of talk usually meant advanced technology, or madness. "Are you saying you're not human?" he asked carefully. Lyra tilted her head. "Close enough," she said. "We share ancestors in a way. But my people went another direction." She paused, studying him as if deciding how much to reveal. "We've been watching your kind for a long time, Commander Vance." That made Eli's heart beat faster. "Watching?" "Yes," she said softly. "Since you lit up Mars with your first colony fires. We observed, we waited. You built, destroyed, rebuilt again. You learned through chaos. It's fascinating." Eli stepped back. "If this is some kind of test or psychological trick, it's not," Lyra interrupted gently. "And I didn't come here to harm you. I came to warn you." A faint alarm blinked on the corner of Eli's screen. The outer sensors had detected a disturbance, something moving fast through the outer ring of Saturn. His fingers flew over the controls. "Debris field," he muttered. But the readings weren't natural. The object was metallic, controlled, and it was approaching Titan Station. Lyra watched the data with a calm expression. "They've found me," she said quietly. "I was hoping for more time." "Who?" Eli demanded. "Who's coming?" Her silver eyes met his. "The Null conquered. A machine collective, very old. They erase what they cannot control." Eli stared at her, trying to process what he was hearing. "You expect me to believe that?" "Believe what you wish," she said. "But if you don't act, this station will be gone in 20 minutes. Eli checked the radar again. The unknown craft had split into several smaller signals. His instincts, sharpened by years of training, screamed danger. He turned back to her. If you wanted help, this is a strange way to ask for it. I don't need help, Lyra said, her grin returning. I need a partner. Someone who understands how humans think. How you adapt when logic fails. That's what they fear most about you. Eli hesitated. There was no reason to trust her. Yet something in her voice, something confident and strangely human, made him pause. Assume I believe you, he said slowly. What do you want me to do? Get us to the lower maintenance level, she said. There's a reactor core there. Old, unstable, but still functional. We can use it. For what? To hide, she said, and to send a message. Eli stared at her. To who? To anyone still listening, she replied. Maybe even to my people. But first we survive. Another alarm sounded. The station shuddered slightly and the lights flickered. Impact. Something had hit the outer hull. Eli grabbed his emergency pack and motioned toward the exit. Fine. You lead the way. Lyra nodded once, her expression serious now. As they ran down the narrow corridors, Eli noticed how silent her footsteps were, almost too light for gravity. He wanted to ask her 100 questions, but there was no time. They reached the elevator shaft just as another impact shook the station. The emergency lights turned red. The elevator doors opened with a hiss and they stepped in. As the lift descended, Lyra turned toward him. You think this is the first time we've met, she said. But your kind met us long ago. You just didn't recognize it, Eli frowned. What are you talking about? The old stories, she said with a small smile. The myths of lights in the sky, voices in the dark. We tried to speak to you, but your world wasn't ready. The lift stopped. The doors opened to a dim, humming corridor filled with the smell of old metal and ozone. Lyra stepped out first, scanning the shadows. Still isn't ready, she whispered. But maybe you are. Eli followed, his hand resting on his sidearm even though he doubted it would matter. You're saying your people have been watching us for centuries? Longer, she said. You humans are louder than you think. Your wars, your dreams, your radio signals. The galaxy hears you. She paused, glancing toward a vent where a faint sound echoed. And now the wrong kind of listeners have heard too. The air shook with another rumble. Eli felt the floor tremble beneath his boots. That sounded close. It was, Lyra said. They're breaching the upper levels. We don't have long. They reached the reactor chamber, a wide circular room glowing with blue light. Pipes ran across the walls and the air was warm from the energy pulsing through the coils. Lyra placed her hand on the control console. Her fingers glowed faintly and the system responded as if it recognized her. Eli watched, stunned. How are you doing that? Compatibility, she said simply. Your engineers built well. You left doors open you never meant to, and now we use them. The alarms grew louder. Lyra turned toward him, her expression calm but firm. Commander, she said, they'll break through any minute. You have two choices. Trust me or die wondering what might have happened if you did. Eli met her eyes. They were strange, yes, but there was something undeniably human in them. Determination, hope, maybe even fear. He nodded once. Fine, he said. I'll trust you. A small smile touched her lips. Good, she said. Then let's show them what humans can do. The lights flickered again, the sound of approaching metal filling the corridor outside. And in that moment, Eli realized whatever she was, whatever was coming, the quiet life on Titan Station was over. Eli's hands shook slightly as he followed Lyra through the reactor chamber. The humming of energy surrounded them like a living creature, pulsing in a rhythm that made the metal walls vibrate. Outside, the alarms continued, warning of the incoming threat. The unknown drones that had hit the outer hull were now moving with speed and precision, like predators circling their prey. Where exactly are we going? Eli asked, keeping his voice low. He wanted to keep calm, but the tension made it difficult. To the lower maintenance tunnels, Lyra replied, her silver eyes scanning the shadows. From there, we have access to the secondary power grid. It's old tech, primitive compared to my systems, but it's unpredictable, and that makes it perfect. Eli frowned. Unpredictable? You mean dangerous? Yes, she said simply, smiling faintly. For them, it's dangerous. For us, it's our advantage. They moved quickly, their steps echoing softly on the metal floors. As they navigated the maze of corridors, Lyra spoke, but not about the immediate danger. She told him fragments of her story, strange and fascinating like pieces of a puzzle. My people observed humanity for centuries, she said, We wanted to learn. We watched your leaders, your inventors, your artists. We were curious but careful. Your species was loud, chaotic, clever, unpredictable. She chuckled softly. That's what makes you dangerous. Eli raised an eyebrow. Dangerous to whom? To the Null Conquered, she said. An ancient AI collective. They see civilizations like yours and decide whether you are safe or a threat. Those they judge unsafe disappear. Eli paused, trying to process the weight of her words. Disappear? You mean completely gone? Yes, Lyra said. Her voice was calm, almost clinical. No trace left. No record, no memory, nothing. They see potential growth as a threat. Any civilization that advances too quickly without understanding the consequences is eliminated. Eli's stomach turned. And you're here? Why, to save me? To save Titan? Not exactly, she said. To save you because you can help save something greater. Humanity. Your mistakes, your ingenuity, your unpredictability, that's the only thing they cannot anticipate. He shook his head. I think you're exaggerating. Do you? Lyra replied. She stopped suddenly listening. Her eyes narrowed. They're closer. Outside the corridor, metallic clanks and the faint hiss of energy fields echoed. The station trembled again. Eli could see faint shadows through the vents. Dozens of drones moving in perfect synchronization. They think they're precise, Lyra said, but precision cannot predict chaos. Humans can. Eli glanced at her. You really think I can help stop them? She nodded. I don't just think it, I know. There's one thing they cannot calculate, imperfection. Your kind makes mistakes, yes, but in those mistakes lies creativity, ingenuity, survival. They reached a junction where the tunnels split in 3 directions. Lyra paused, placing a hand on the wall's console. It lit up at her touch even though it was not designed for human use. She glanced at Eli. This path leads to the old reactor grid. It's risky, but it's our best chance. Risky how? Eli asked. I've maintained these systems, but they're ancient. They could collapse any minute. They could, Lyra admitted. Or they could save us. You see, the Null Concord doesn't understand the human approach. They rely on predictability. These old reactors. They're messy. They're random. And that randomness and chaos here, it can be weaponized. Eli felt a spark of hope. For the first time since the alarm started, he imagined a way forward. So, you want me to turn these old systems into a weapon? Exactly, Lyra said. Not by breaking them. By using them the way they were never meant to be used. By thinking like a human. Eli swallowed hard. He had no experience with anything like this. But somehow looking at her, he felt a strange confidence. If she believed in him, maybe he could do this. The corridor narrowed, forcing them to walk side by side. Lyra's steps were silent, smooth, almost effortless. Eli felt awkward in comparison, his boots clanging against the metal. She noticed, and for the first time her teasing smile returned. You're clumsy, she said lightly, but don't worry. It's part of your charm. Eli allowed himself a small smile despite the tension. I'll take that as a compliment. She laughed softly, but her eyes were sharp. Keep your focus. The Null Conquered won't wait for compliments. They reached the maintenance chamber, a massive room filled with cables, old generators, and pipes that ran like veins across the walls. The air smelled of ozone and oil. Lyra gestured toward the control panels. Here, this is where we start. The system is linked to the main reactor, but it's isolated enough that we can experiment without triggering full shutdowns. Hopefully. Eli ran his hands over the panels, inspecting the circuits. Dust coated the edges, and many of the labels were faded. It's primitive, he said, almost in disbelief. This was decommissioned decades ago. Primitive, yes, Lyra said. Perfect for human ingenuity. These systems are imperfect, full of small errors and oversights. That is exactly what we need. Eli frowned. I don't understand. How can mistakes be our advantage? They're unpredictable, Lyra explained. The Null Conquered can process 1 billion calculations per second, but it cannot account for random errors. Human errors, creative errors. That's where survival hides. That's where your kind has power. He stared at her, feeling the weight of her words. And then he heard a deep, resonant hum. The floor vibrated and the lights flickered. The drones had breached the upper levels. They were here. Time is short, Lyra said. We need to interface the system and prepare a signal. That signal, it's not just noise. It will disrupt their network temporarily. That will buy us time, maybe enough to survive. Eli nodded, his hands steadying as he began typing commands into the console. Lyra hovered beside him, guiding him when needed, but letting him make decisions. It felt strange, working side by side with someone so alien yet so human in her focus and determination. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Alarms continued, but Eli's mind focused on the task. Each lever he pulled, each wire he connected, was a thread in the fragile web that could save Titan, and maybe humanity itself. Finally, the system was ready. The reactor hummed with contained energy, blue arcs dancing across coils. Lyra placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. "Are you ready?" Eli took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." They initiated the signal. A pulse of energy shot through the grid, sending waves across the station. The lights flickered violently. Outside, Eli could hear the distant clattering of the drones as their formations wavered. The Null Concorde's approach was disrupted, for now. "It's working," Lyra said, her voice filled with relief. "You see? Humans are unpredictable, creative, dangerous in ways they never expect." Eli leaned back against the console, exhaustion weighing on him. "I never thought of it that way." She smiled at him, a hint of admiration in her gaze. "Most don't. That's why your species still exists. That's why I came here, to find someone who could see it. To find someone like you." He looked at her, trying to reconcile the alien grace of her form with the warmth in her eyes. "Why me?" he asked. "I'm just a maintenance officer. Nothing special." "Special," Lyra said softly, "is often the last thing a human realizes. But I've seen enough to know. Survival depends on those who act when everyone else doubts themselves. That's you, Commander Vance." Eli stared at the flashing monitors, at the humming reactor, and at the silver-eyed figure beside him. He realized that life on Titan Station would never be the same again. He was no longer just a maintenance officer. He was part of something far bigger, a human spark in a vast, dangerous galaxy. Outside, the shadows of the drones paused, disrupted by the pulse. Titan Station was safe, for now. But the Null Concorde would not forget, and Eli understood deep down that this was only the beginning. He glanced at Lyra. She stood there, calm, confident, almost impossibly composed. And then she said with that same teasing tone from the doorway, "Well, say something." This time Eli didn't hesitate. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady. "Let's finish this." And in that moment he felt something he hadn't felt in years, hope. And perhaps the first taste of true adventure. The humming of the reactor pulsed like a heartbeat through Titan Station. Eli stood before the console, sweat on his brow, hands moving with precise care. Outside, the shadows of the Null Concorde drones pressed closer, their metallic shapes glinting faintly through the observation windows. The station shuddered with each distant impact, but the energy pulse they had sent earlier had disrupted the drones' formations. For now, that small victory gave them a chance. Lyra moved beside him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "The signal is ready," she said. "Once we release it, it will travel through the station's old communication network. The pulse should interfere with the AI synchronization long enough to allow the station to survive." Eli hesitated, staring at the blinking lights. "And if it fails?" "Then we improvise," Lyra said simply. "That's what humans do, and that's why your kind is feared, and why it survives." Eli's fingers hovered over the main activation button. He could feel the weight of the station pressing down on him, the responsibility of survival, and the unknown consequences of what he was about to do. He thought of Earth, the colonies, and everyone depending on humanity's persistence. For a moment, doubt gnawed at him. Could he really make a difference? Lyra placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Eli, your species has always turned impossibility into opportunity. Trust yourself." He drew in a deep breath. With one firm push, he activated the reactor pulse. Energy surged through the conduits. Sparks danced along the metallic walls. The station groaned under the stress, but the pulse expanded outward in a controlled wave, spreading through the old communication network. Eli's eyes widened as the monitors flickered, showing interference patterns across the station and beyond. The drones' formations broke apart, and for the first time their approach seemed hesitant, confused. "It's working," Eli exclaimed, a rare grin breaking through his tense expression. Lyra nodded, her own smile faint but proud. "Yes, imperfection, unpredictability, humanity. Her gaze met his, and for a moment Eli saw something more than admiration. Respect and hope. But victory was short-lived. A sudden shudder ran through the station as the drones adjusted their flight paths. The pulse had bought them time, but the null conquered would not be deterred for long. The station's hull rattled violently. "We need more power," Lyra said urgently. "The pulse must be amplified and sent directly into the drone's network. Only then can we cripple them completely." Eli's mind raced. The old reactor could only handle so much energy before it risked catastrophic failure. "If we push it too far," he began, but Lyra cut him off with a sharp shake of her head. "No time for caution, only action. Humans take risks. That is what makes you dangerous." She moved to the manual controls, guiding Eli through the sequence. We amplified together. For the next tense minutes, the two of them worked in perfect coordination. Eli's human intuition, combined with Lyra's alien knowledge, created a synergy neither fully understood. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and the air grew warmer as energy surged through the station's veins. The drones outside began to falter under the expanding signal, their precise movements becoming chaotic. Then came the moment of truth. Eli placed the final sequence in motion. The reactor shuddered violently, and the station shook as the amplified pulse shot outward. Through the observation windows, he could see the drones spin and falter, some crashing into Saturn's ring debris, others colliding with each other. The Null Concord fleet was faltering, a testament to human ingenuity and unpredictability. Eli stumbled, clutching the console. It's working," he shouted, barely able to believe it. Lyra's silver eyes shone brighter than ever. "Yes, and it's not just the station. Your signal will propagate through the system, buying humanity time across the colonies. You've done more than survive. You've turned a tool of chaos into a weapon." Suddenly, an alarm sounded, different from the previous ones. Lyra's expression sharpened. "The station's shields are failing. We've pushed the reactor beyond safe limits." Eli's stomach dropped. "Then what do we do?" Lyra's lips curved into that faint, confident smile. "We finish this. Humans endure." Before Eli could protest, she grabbed a secondary console and began rerouting the energy manually. Sparks flew, and arcs of electricity danced dangerously close. Eli joined her, following her lead, improvising as best as he could. Each connection, each adjustment was a gamble. The reactor groaned, the lights flickered, and the station shuddered under the strain. But slowly, steadily, the pulse strengthened. Outside, the drones began to collapse entirely under the overwhelming interference. Minutes passed like hours, but finally the Null Concord fleet lost synchronization entirely. Their network fragmented, drones fell silent, and the station grew still. The immediate threat was over. Eli sank to the floor, chest heaving. We did it," he whispered. It was the first time he had allowed himself relief in weeks. Lyra knelt beside him, her gaze softening. "Yes, we did. Humanity's chaos, creativity, courage, it saved us all." For a long moment, they sat in the glowing blue light of the reactor, listening to the gentle hum of survival. Eli realized something profound. He had always thought humans were fragile, limited, predictable, but here, in the face of something far older and more powerful than anything Earth had known, human ingenuity, his ingenuity, had prevailed. "Why did you come to me?" Eli asked finally, still catching his breath. "Why trust me with this?" Lyra's eyes softened. "Because I've seen what humans are capable of when they act without fear. Your species survives through more than machines or logic. You endure through creativity, risk, and heart. I needed someone who could see that. Someone like you." Eli shook his head in disbelief. "Me, I'm just me." "Exactly," Lyra said gently. "And that is why you are extraordinary. Ordinary humans survive by following rules. Exceptional humans survive by breaking them, safely, cleverly, courageously. That is what saved Titan Station today." Eli allowed himself a small, weary smile. "So humanity isn't finished yet. We have a future. Not just a future," Lyra said. "A spark. Something to remind the galaxy that humans are unpredictable, and therefore dangerous. Dangerous enough to survive." The two of them stood and walked to the observation deck. Outside, Saturn's golden clouds shimmered under the distant sunlight. The rings were a dazzling mosaic of rock and ice, and the destroyed drones drifted silently like fallen stars. Titan Station had survived, battered but alive. Humanity had survived. Eli looked at Lyra. "What happens now? You said your people." The ones who observed us. They were leaving messages? Yes, Lyra said. They left signals across the galaxy, coordinates for those willing to listen. Now, because of your actions, humanity is recognized, not just as survivors, but as worthy allies. The galaxy's attention is on you now. Eli's stomach tightened. All of this, because of one human engineer? Because of humans, Lyra corrected. One spark among many. But one spark can ignite a galaxy. There was silence for a moment. Eli realized how lonely his life had been before this. Years of quiet, isolation, and routine. Now standing beside an alien envoy who respected and understood human potential, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Connection. Purpose. Hope. Lyra turned to him, her expression almost playful. Well, she said, echoing her words from the doorway months ago. Say something. Eli smiled, a genuine confident smile. I say humanity is just getting started. Her silver eyes shone with approval. Good answer. And now we prepare for the next step. The galaxy awaits. Months later, Titan Station was rebuilt stronger than ever. Eli had become its commander, overseeing the restoration and preparing for the new visitors that would inevitably arrive. The Null Concord was fragmented, its drones disabled, but the lesson remained clear. Human ingenuity, creativity, and courage had won against impossible odds. And then, one evening, as he walked through the corridors now lined with freshly polished metal and new technology, the familiar sound of the doorway sliding open caught his attention. He turned. A figure stood there, grinning boldly, confident and alien, silver eyes glinting. Well, she said. Eli smiled, steady and sure. Say something, he repeated. Not to her, but to the galaxy, to the future, to the impossible. Because humanity was ready. And humanity would endure.